Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, this is going to be my third video on Teal Swan. Okay, now here I'd like to talk about the most serious controversy involving Teal Swan. Okay, and this is hard even for me to talk about because there's just so many factors, and the case is such a complex case. But here I want to talk about her position on suicide. Okay, and comments that have been attributed to her and things that she's been heard to say, where it could be taken that she means that she's either in favor of suicide or she has encouraged people to commit suicide. Okay, now that's very serious. I mean, and I think it's interesting. I think she sort of enjoys sort of playing on the very edge of a huge controversy, because I think she knows deep down inside that major controversy is just a lot of attention. Okay, and I think like Donald Trump, because she's sort of a dramatic, sort of a bigger than life person, you never know when you can take her literally. And so, since you can't take her absolutely literally, or you never know, she has that little wiggle room where she can be right on the edge of being outrageous. And you can't really pin her down, you know. And so, in the end, she just gets a lot of attention. Okay. Now, do I know what her position is on suicide? Do I know if she privately thinks that some people should kill themselves? You know, maybe she does. I don't know. But you can't really, you know, it's not like there's like a legal cause of action where we can actually hold her accountable for this. So in the end, she's just getting a lot of attention. Okay. Um, Now, what do I think is really happening with her? Like I think probably in most cases, I think she probably doesn't really want people to kill themselves. Probably in most. That's what I'm thinking. Okay. What I'm thinking is that this is probably just a very advanced, very fancy form of coaching, where she's sort of like putting people's bullshit in their face. Okay, saying like, okay, you want to kill yourself? Go kill yourself. Basically, forcing people to see their bullshit and maybe break out of their bullshit. You know. Now, obviously, that's very dangerous, okay? Because if somebody is close to committing suicide or says they're going to commit suicide, okay, obviously, some people, even though they're in bullshit, they're in a bullshit place, they may actually do it, you know? And there have been many people who have completed suicides, okay, because they were trying to, let's say, manipulate other people, all right? So the fact that somebody's in bullshit, or they're not being authentic in their desire to kill themselves, you know, that doesn't mean they're not going to kill themselves, you know? So I think it's dangerous territory, but I'm sure Teal Swan probably, she would probably say that she's just a very advanced coach, and she's like a horse whisperer, like a dog whisperer. She knows how to just really, you know, play the edges, play the danger, whatever. Um, but probably in most cases, I'm guessing, she probably doesn't really want people to kill themselves, but she probably just has that kind of like coach's, you know, psychodramatic manipulation, where she basically wants to put people's bullshit in their face and just turn the tables on them and say, "Oh, you want to kill yourself? Go for it." You know, so that they have to face their actual reality. You know, so what are we really opening the door to here? Okay, now obviously, Teal Swan, she appears on the surface, okay, to be very metaphysical. Okay, in other words, it's all about, you know, reincarnation, past lives, future lives, you know, like coming from other planets, you know, being aliens, all this stuff. And I'm going to say that all of that to me is just metaphysical mumbo jumbo. Okay, and I say mumbo jumbo because Teal Swan herself cannot prove any of it. Okay, Teal Swan herself cannot prove any of that crap about any prior life or future life or reincarnation or coming from another planet. That's completely unprovable, and she knows it. Okay, but she loves to talk about it. Okay, because it's unprovable, because it's totally metaphysical. That just gives her a bunch of mythological, sort of like, not even fictional. This is beyond fiction. This is fantasy, pure fantasy. This is just, to me, I'm sorry, this is just like feathers. It's like an Indian, it's like a Native American wearing feathers. Okay, it's just basically like it's like her. This is like her flamboyant dress. You know, it just gives her color. It just makes her larger than life. You know, but it's completely unprovable. You know, and all it does is just give her, I don't know, like it just makes her. It makes her. I don't know how to say it. It's just color. It's just color and feathers. You know what I mean? And so I think Teal Swan is very, very expert performer. She's an intuitive performer, and she knows that if she plays into this world of all this, you know, fantasy, absolute fantasy, metaphysical fantasy, okay, this is just gonna like, I don't know. It's just part of her magic, basically. Okay. Now, does that mean she does not believe actually in past lives or future lives, or does that mean she doesn't believe in reincarnation? I can't say, and frankly, she can't even answer that. Okay, because if Teal Swan says that she believes that she's from another planet, that if she believes in reincarnation, she can't prove it, and she knows she can't prove it. She's never actually offered proof of these things. Okay, she doesn't pretend to prove it. Okay, so either it's a religious delusion, which it may be, or it's something that she just believes without proof. And I think we need to learn to separate beliefs that have some foundation, okay, and beliefs that have no foundation, okay. And I think in this case, I think she may believe it. She may, you know, she may like deeply believe in these things, or maybe just kind of believe in them or whatever. But these are not things that have. There's never been a time in Teal's life or a place where she could actually stand and say this is knowledge. It's not knowledge. It's just belief without foundation. Okay, so and also you can't take away the fact that this whole body of like metaphysical color or feathers or whatever, all this stuff about past lives, reincarnation, planets, and all that. This has always served her well. In other words, she's always been able to cash in on this, and it's always been profitable for her. So she has no way of proving it. Okay, it's completely metaphysical, but it benefits her so greatly, and it feeds into her persona. Okay, that you have to include that in the analysis. Okay, she can't prove it. It's just pure belief, but it's a belief that serves her very well. Okay, so I would separate this from religious delusion, because when you have a religious delusion, it may not serve you. Okay, but when it serves you, then you have to question how much she really, well, she may believe it, but how much she really has justification for that belief. Okay, because I think it serves her persona and it serves her fantasy performance. Okay, so I'll leave it open how much she may or may not believe. Okay, but I think to some extent, I think this is just the color and the feathers and the flamboyance of her persona, all this metaphysical stuff. So when she talks about justifying suicide by saying, well, you can just come back as another person, okay, she may kind of believe that, but I think that's so fed into her colorful persona, her flamboyance, that I think that in a sense, this is not the real reason why she talks about suicide and why she treats people the way she does about suicide. Okay, I think there's something else going on. Okay, I think the truth of Teal Swan, I think the philosophical content of Teal Swan, or the philosophical, I would say the I think what's important about Teal Swan is not so much the metaphysical stuff. Okay, I think that's just the dressing. Okay, I think the real substantial philosophical importance of Teal Swan, I think, is something she doesn't talk about. Okay, and I think what I see in Teal Swan, I think I see sort of an echo of something I've seen in landmark education. I'm not going to say Scientology, but in some, like say, I say landmark education, and in some 20th century existentialist philosophy. Okay. And basically, it's the idea, the basic existentialist idea that around, how would you say? Existentialists are really concerned about human authenticity. Okay. And the idea is that humans have a lot of trouble taking responsibility for being in charge of their life. Okay. And being sort of authentically located in their life and addressing the realities of their life. Okay. And when I see Teal Swan sort of explaining herself and talking about her theories and her way of dealing with people, okay, I kind of get the idea that Teal Swan sort of diagnoses people as being sort of not authentic. Okay. And she sort of, as a coach, she uses whatever mumbo jumbo to sort of get people to their authentic place. Okay. And I think that to me is sort of like the same kind of is sort of like the same sort of existentialism that I've seen in landmark education. Okay, so I don't know if Teal Swan ever was exposed to that, or maybe indirectly picked up on that, but I think she sort of resonates with that sort of existentialism. You know, the idea basically is that most people live sort of false lives where we sort of don't really have an authentic, we don't really authentically address our reality, and we don't really take responsibility for how well our lives are. We sort of live our lives sort of blaming circumstances, and sort of being sort of a victim of circumstances, and sort of live more complaining and not really taking full responsibility for how our lives go. Okay. Now Teal Swan never talks about that, but I think I can see that sort of existentialism sort of underlying the message as she flirts around suicide. Okay. So I think basically what Teal Swan's position is, even if unconsciously, I think basically when someone says they want to kill themselves, okay, or they feel like they want to kill themselves, okay, probably they're not really being authentic, is probably her intuition. Okay. And probably her idea is that these are people that have never actually taken full responsibility to make their lives the way they want their lives to be, despite their circumstances. Okay. And that when the circumstances pile really high on a person, okay, you start to believe falsely like you are not the author of your life, that you are sort of a victim of circumstances. Okay. And so basically, I think what she's probably doing is probably, taking advantage of somebody being right on the edge, of maybe ending their life, and thinking this is a moment when they could maybe see their bullshit for the first time, and maybe for the first time see themselves, and maybe you have to go to that far edge of wanting to kill yourself to to finally see that you've been full of shit in your life, and you haven't really taken on the responsibility of sort of you being the one responsible. How would you say? A lot of us don't really, I think the idea is that a lot of us don't really take full responsibility for how our lives go. Okay. And I know that that's hard to do when some people really do have circumstances, but I guess the idea is that no matter what your circumstances, you know, you sort of have to, you know, I guess the idea is that no matter what the circumstances, that most people don't fully address their present circumstances, and they don't really fully take responsibility, for how their life is going to be. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at explaining myself, but basically, I just see that kind of existentialist streak in Teal Swan, and I think that maybe is what she's doing with the whole her whole philosophy, really. In other words, I think all the metaphysical stuff is just dressing, colors. It's like feathers. And I think the real message is something she never talks about, but I think the real message is getting people to sort of see their bullshit, okay, and just take responsibility for their lives. That's kind of what I'm picking up. So if she tells someone, well, maybe you should kill yourself, she's sort of like throwing their bullshit back in their face, okay? So that maybe at the last minute, when they're really facing ending everything, they might see for the first time, that they've been full of shit, and maybe have a spark, to maybe start taking responsibility for their lives and not living in bullshit. Now that's a tough one, because I think some people, however full of shit they may be, they may actually kill themselves, so I'm going to go ahead and say that, yeah, I think it's dangerous, if it's true what she's done, that she's been, even encouraging people to kill themselves, or telling people go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and guess that that's probably not a good thing to do, but I'll imagine that she has some kind of justification along the lines of, sort of, trying to do some fancy coaching to get people to see their bullshit, and she's not literally trying to get them to kill themselves. So, my diagnosis is that there's some kind of like intuitive existentialism underneath, and she's sort of getting people, trying to get people to, see how they lived sort of inauthentically, and to maybe for the last time in their lives, for the first time, the last time, to see if they can, sort of confront their bullshit and maybe start living authentically. So that's my interpretation, and In the end, I don't really see Teal Swan as either a narcissist or really as a bad person, but I think she does flirt with the edges big time. Okay. And I think she likes to flirt with controversy because I think it's part of making herself be bigger than life, larger than life. And I think she does have an instinct to be sort of like, to get a lot of attention around controversy because that's just how she makes herself big. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, I think she does have some coaching abilities. And I think that maybe in some cases, depending on the person, she may actually have a message that if you took it seriously might be a good message, which is a message of existentialism. That maybe as people, no matter how bad our situation, that we take full responsibility for how our lives go, no matter how overwhelmed, no matter how bad our circumstances, that that real suffering actually is, how would you say? Now Teal wouldn't say this. Teal would say that people do suffer because I've heard her say it. She'll say that people do suffer and that's why they want to commit suicide. But I think my opinion is I think as people get to the point of suicide, I don't think that's suffering. I think that's intolerance. Okay. And I think true suffering is when you take on all the circumstances and you take full responsibility for how your life is going to go despite those circumstances. I think that's where the real power comes. And I think Teal Swan has her own version of that, except that I think she does believe there is suffering. Okay. Whereas I would turn it around and I would say um, the true suffering, okay, is when you're not resisting. Okay. And I think suicide is an example of resisting reality as opposed to embracing it and taking it on. Okay. So, that's just my position. Um, but I guess, my instinct is that I think there is a good message potentially. And I think Teal Swan may have, underneath all the feathers and all the fantasy and all the metaphysical bullshit, I think she may have a couple of very positive messages that sort of come through implicitly, okay, which is basically encouraging people to sort of get through their bullshit and take responsibility for their lives. So now, if I'm wrong, that's fine, but that's kind of what I see. So anyway, I'm sorry. These videos are really hard. Talking about Teal Swan actually is really hard. She must be putting like some kind of witchcraft on me because I've never had so much difficulty talking about a person. So maybe this is proof of her powers that I can't even talk about her. My brain just goes into so whatever. So maybe she is super powerful. But my guess is that she's probably like a natural shaman, basically, and she uses a lot of kind of fantastical material, but that really she's delivering maybe a potentially a very healthy message, a very common sense message underneath all the fanfare and all the fantasy. So basically, yeah, I just think that in the end, when you talk about the metaphysical, you're talking about stuff that's totally unprovable. So you have to see what's the real message. And the real message may be something you don't talk about. And maybe she's indirectly through a lot of fantastical drama, just trying to get people to find their more authentic place in life and to take on the responsibility of living an authentic life. Now, that's probably being as most charitable as I can to her, but I think that may be what's going on with her. So anyway, thanks for your patience with this. It's very hard for me to talk about Teal Swan, and I hope I can get over this spell that she's put on me. All right. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.